Welcome back, our attendees. Our next speaker is ready, Mr. Ricardo Perez, Systems Engineer at Fortinet, speaking on today's topic, detecting, preventing, and staying on top of your cybersecurity threats. Over to you, Mr. Ricardo.
Thank you very much, Melvin. So I'll try my best in 20 minutes to summarize what is the latest and the greatest around cybersecurity in terms of threats and, more importantly, what we are doing to prevent them and to defend ourselves. So let me bring some fresh stats. These are real-time statistics around attacks in the world. These are being provided by our FortiGuard, which is Fortinet FortiGuard, which is our international threat intelligence center. So we look here. So this gives me the penetration attempts on the top 5 penetration attempts in the top 5 most affected countries. So you see in the last, let me go here and just pause this. So this is in the last day, one day. So South Korea, it has experienced in the last day 190 million penetration attempts. US 105 million penetration attempts. Then Italy, Japan, and China, and the rest of the world 70 million. If we look at botnets, we see Thailand with 500,000, Japan 400K, India as well 353,000, Turkey, US, and the rest of the world. And then another type is virus or malware. In this case, we see actually China being hit really badly over the last day with 8 million. So with this, you get an idea of the volume of the threats that are out there. Basically, any device exposed to the internet is going to be subject to any sort of penetration attempt. So before we go into what we do, we need to understand a little bit what the main attack vectors we have out there. So I'm going to put this animation. So we have our threat agent over here on top. I'm just trying to target an organization. Now, the first thing that the threat agent does is, first of all, it needs to get a vulnerability, something that can be exploited. Now, depends on the sophistication of the threat agent. It can maybe bite a vulnerability that is available, maybe discovers it. Now, today we are not talking about cybersecurity or cyber criminals. We are in a sort of cyber war. These agents are very sophisticated, and also, moreover, there are governmental agencies, trying to figure out how to penetrate other countries. So you can see how sophisticated the budget that these people manage to get and handle to get really sophisticated exploits. But anyway, so once it discovers or creates vulnerability, the second thing is we need to package it. So this person or this organization needs to package. So it just package it in what we call a malware exploit. So at this point, the malware is done. We need to distribute it. And there are several ways to do that. So the easiest one, and is the common one, is to put that into an email as an attachment and then send it over. Another common way is to, instead of putting the malware in an attachment, it just creates the threat agent creates a website, a malicious website, and then crafts an email with a link that when you click on it, redirects you to that malicious site. So at that point, email is sent, gets to the email server, email gets delivered to the user, whether clicks on the attachment or clicks on the link that goes to that web page, it gets infected. And at that point, we have what we call the lateral movement. So now the malware spreads over your wireless network into your wireless users. Likewise, it spreads into the wired users over the wired network. In addition to that, there is also another common threat vector or threat way is imagine yourself having a web application like a common enterprise, And this web application server, a bank, or you can upload forms, and one of them typically you can apply to jobs over that web page. So one common way is to hide this malware in a sort of CB, upload that to the web server, and then from there goes into the organization. And the last one is the traditional physical way as well. So you create an USB stick. You put the malware and you drop the physical USB stick nearby where that company is. So hoping that one employee picks that up, plugs that in, and then it gets infected. Of course, there are other ways, but these are the most common ways. So what can we do to mitigate this risk? So the first thing that we can do is to put what we call a mail gateway, because most of our threats coming over email. So one of the products is Fortinet. It's an email security gateway that will check every mail before it hits the email server. Second obvious one is to put what we call a perimeter firewall. So whenever there is a file traversing or a penetration attempt traversing that organization, that firewall, then that gets detected. Likewise, as we move into, I think the previous speaker talked about zero trust. We are in a way that we are not trusting anything, so we need to put security sensors inside our own organization. So one of the obvious choices is to put a sort of security switch, also a security, built-in security access point that we can also leverage. And then to protect your web application server, we position typically a WAF, a web application firewall. We also have that, it's called FortiWeb. And last but not least, we need to protect the endpoint. So there are several vendors over there providing this service. In our case, we typically do with FortiClient. So FortiClient there, FortiClient and the reception, and then FortiClient as well, pretty much in every endpoint. So you might think, okay, at this point, it looks like we are quite okay, because we pretty much are protecting everything. And I'm telling you, no, this is not enough. This is like, cybersecurity is like water in a house. If you have a pipe with a crack, even if it doesn't rain, you know that when it rains, you will have a leak. So there is no much point in having a really, really good email security gateway with the latest and greatest signatures with AI if your endpoint is weak, because eventually malware will penetrate on your weakest point. So how do we mitigate this? And this is where, we're thinking in the next, well, actually we have many of these features already. So the next level is to make these elements talk together, right? And start sharing information. So instead of being like in this picture, like a standalone, like silo type of security posture or security point in the network, we are going to make these guys now. So these guys now need to start talking to each other, start sharing intelligence information, threat information, to come up in a sort of common policy, common understanding of the latest and greatest threats, to be pretty much better prepared to address them. Now, the second area where we are putting a lot of focus is artificial intelligence, right? So each and every of these elements, today, not all of them, but most of them are equipped with AI and machine learning capabilities. So in order to respond to attacks that are unknown at that particular point in time. Another area is automation, because as you can see in this picture, and this picture is quite simplified, I just put like 4 or 5 different elements, but there are more. Typically in a large organization, perhaps there are like 20, 30 security solutions, and you are working in a multi-vendor approach, not only for security, but also for network. So eventually, when you need to investigate penetration attempts, your people will need to deal with a lot of different systems, which puts a stress on your security operations center. So we're trying to make an abstraction, put tools in place that can, using APIs, can talk to each other and can trigger actions, and therefore reduce the stress on your SOC. And last but not least, the zero trust access. So if you look at traditional way of doing security, you typically treated everything that's outside my organization is untrusted. So you put a perimeter firewall over here, and then everything that is inside my organization is trusted. As we move into telework, remote workers, a lot of IoTs, that approach is not valid anymore. So everything now is untrusted, regardless where that endpoint device is. All right, so let's move into the first one is Security Fabric. Security Fabric, as mentioned, it gives us a couple of interesting things. The first thing is because now these different elements talk to each other, we get beautiful visibility on the network. And I'm just going to log into a device that is live, and I'm going to show you how the Security Fabric looks like. So this is a perimeter firewall, and you can think about this as an organization, like a headquarters or branch. So let me give you a feeling on how the security, you see that I have a tab here, Security Fabric. So now the different elements talking to each other and is building the topology. And this will take maybe a couple of seconds. Right. So you see from here to my right, this is inside the organization, right? So you can think about this as your corporate organization. It could be even data center. It could be anything that has users and machines. So this is my perimeter firewall. This is actually the device I'm logged in and where I have the Security Fabric capabilities. This is the internet. And because this is a corporate environment, I have another firewall on my first floor. I have switches, right? I have access points, and I have devices. So the first, and I can expand here, and I get more information about the device. Actually, this device is my laptop. I am streaming this now. And I can even actually, from this point, take actions, quarantine, if I believe that is compromised. So the first benefit of this sharing information is visibility. You quickly get a very good feeling, a very good idea on what's going in your organization. Now, the second benefit, in terms of end users, machines, IoT devices, access points, the wireless infrastructure, firewalls, and so on. The second benefit is as well this, because now we share information between these devices. Now we can get recommendations. So if we look here, these 5, you see the fabric is providing security recommendations. So if I click here, it's telling me that this firewall, the configuration is not bad, all right? It has a good score, but I can improve or enhance my security posture according to industry best practices. So basically what it's doing is providing configuration recommendations across the whole security fabric to increase your security posture. So if I go here, for instance, fabric coverage, you see it runs some automatic tests. So past 12, it failed 1, right? So now I click here and it's saying, okay, this test is failed. If I click, it's giving me suggestions on how to improve that part. Okay, so that's the numbers, the second benefit of having these devices talk to each other, because now I get the full view and I get a common understanding on how my whole security posture is across the different products or the different solutions. And the third thing is about sharing intelligence threat information. And I'm just going to put you an example. So I'll put back the first 4 devices that I put in the first slide. So I have Fortinet, which is protecting my email. I have FortiWeb, that is protecting the web application server. I have FortiGate, that is protecting my network, my corporate environment as a perimeter firewall. And I have FortiClient, which is the endpoint. Now I'm going to bring another element. It's called FortiAI. And this has AI built in that is able to detect zero-day malware attacks, right? So when something is submitted to this device, we will break that attachment or file or whatever that is, we break that into pieces and we pass that through our, the machine learning engine, which is a neural network. And based on that, we can take a really accurate decision whether that is a malicious file or not. So let me show you the flow now. Okay, I have Fortinet there. So a mail comes through, and this email has actually a malicious attachment. So Fortinet at this point, it queues that email, it doesn't send it over, right? So what it's going to do is going to send it over to FortiAI, only the attachment, right? And also URLs, because URLs, as we know, they contain redirections to malicious sites. So whether that is an attachment or a URL, we send that to FortiAI. FortiAI runs the machine learning algorithm, and in 3 seconds, because this is machine learning, in 3 seconds, it is able to provide a very accurate verdict. And at that point in time, it replies back to Fortinet saying, listen, this email has an attachment, this attachment is malicious. At that point, Fortinet release or, removes the attachment from the email and forwards the email to the recipient. So far, so good, but we are not finishing here, because now FortiAI has knowledge about this file, correct? So it's able to create what we call the malware package, which contains information about threats. So it creates this malware package and now distributes that into the rest of the elements in my security fabric. So at this point, all my elements, not only Fortinet, are fully aware of this new malware that has been just discovered in your particular organization. So this is why I'm saying that we are fixing the pipes. We are making sure there's no cracks in the whole network. So instead of treating these elements as a standalone, being isolated, now we are sharing information, and this information now is comprehensive, common, and up to date in your whole security solution. Right, and this is why we mentioned this is what the security fabric is. Any questions so far?
You want the questions? Are you done, sir?
No, I'm not done. So I'm just asking if there is any question for this.
Not yet.
All right, good. So that was number one, where we're putting a lot of focus. The second area we're putting a lot of focus is what we call zero trust access. So as mentioned in the beginning, traditional way of doing things, an organization in its corporate environment puts a firewall in the perimeter. Everything that's outside is untrusted, everything inside is trusted. That's not the case anymore, because the attack surface is increasing. We have more devices. Our workforce now works from home. So that's definitely not a good idea anymore, right? So everything now is untrusted, and we have to treat it like that. So whether that's an IoT device, I need to put tools to isolate that and inspect that traffic coming and going to and coming from. And first of all, I need to identify them very clearly, right? Understand where they are and what they're doing. Secondly, we need to, all that traffic from IoT needs to go through a security sensor. That's number two. And then also, with any mobile, any device, whether that is on network or off network. So we have tools, and then there's another terminology called SASE that you might have heard about. So SASE is within, this context of making sure that we inspect pretty much every single flow before that is authorized into the network. So that's number two. Number three is helping yourself, right? Helping the security operations center. Because as mentioned, there are too many vendors. So if you are a mid-sized corporation, you might have like 3 or 4 or 5 different vendors in terms of network. You have different desktop environments, you have different server environments, you have hypervisors, you have security devices. And when it comes to provide comprehensive security, you will need to have a good understanding of pretty much everything that is deployed in your organization. And of course, we are quite clever. Everybody in this room, in this industry, we're quite clever, but we are not. We have our limitations, so it's impossible to be able to handle so many technologies to a high level of detail. So that's number one. Number two, the more devices you have, and because now we are paranoid in terms of logging everything, we have too many alerts, and this causes an alert fatigue in all organizations. Basically, your people cannot cope with so many alarms, and this is definitely not good. Once the alarms are identified, then we need to start doing some manual investigation, and the response is slow, right? And malware, although malware is typically the most dangerous one, is the one that is in the organization already, and it takes months to discover. But there are other malware like ransomware that could be quite fast, and you want to react to that one very fast. So typically a manual response is inherently slow. And then the last one is hard to find because there's so much demand for security experts that it's difficult to find trained people. So we have two options here. So one option is using ODP because UDP can outsource some of this responsibility. And actually, this is one of the products that ODP is looking at. It's called FortiSOAR, that to automate many of these things. And you can also deploy these things yourself, right? So this, the glue or the device or the mechanism that provides all this, providing vendor abstraction, reducing alarms and alerts, helping a lot your SOC people is SOAR. And let me just give you a little bit an idea on how this works. So now this sits in the middle. So this has off-the-shelf API. So there is not much development that you need to do. So this guy that sits here is able to talk to using APIs to many vendor equipment. Is able to talk to many cyber intelligence threat intelligence feeds, if you like. Is able as well to interface with your ticketing system, and is integrated with many devices. So for instance, let's say you have a SIEM solution in place, or any other solution or any other element that generates incidents or alerts. So now let's say that we get we have a SIEM solution there that is creating an incident. So instead of now this incident being handled by your analyst, so this incident now is sent to the SOAR. The SOAR now is able to parse the incident. Let's say that incident has a suspicious URL. So SOAR at that point in time can actually, using APIs, can actually go out and query 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as many threat intelligence feeds as you like. So picks the URL, queries a lot, and we call that data enrichment, and then gets the result back. At that point in time, SOAR automatically know whether that URL is good or bad. At this point, it can raise an incident to your analyst and wait for your analyst to take action, create an automatic ticketing ticket system, or can trigger automatically a response, and this is the R part of it. So if we know that that URL is bad, because we query many different third-party tools, we can now trigger an automatic rule into my firewall or my email to block that source. So, and because, as I said, this has is able to easily talk to many different devices. Now your analyst doesn't have to know Cisco, for instance, or Fortinet or Forcepoint or any other vendor, because the API is there. So the way to do things is the same. So the difficulty is abstracted from the analyst. So this is a little bit what SOAR brings into this picture. So as a summary, there are real threats out there. There are millions per minute. They are getting more and more sophisticated. We're not talking about cyber threats. We're talking about cyber wars now. We have powerful organizations crafting zero-day attacks. So we need to really be really well prepared. And by well prepared, I mean we shouldn't have any silo approach paradigm anymore. Our solutions now need to talk to each other, start sharing information between them, not only in terms of visibility, but also configuration recommendations and also threat intelligence. So your whole network becomes, the whole security posture increases tremendously. We're helping bringing a lot of intelligence to each and every of these elements, so it can take autonomous decisions as well. We're bringing a lot of automation into this picture to facilitate the work of security analysts. And then we are changing the paradigm a little bit in terms of the old paradigm of outside bad, inside good is not valid anymore. Now, outside bad, inside bad as well. So we don't trust anything. So hopefully, in these 20 minutes, I think I did 25 minutes, I paint a picture on what the latest and greatest in terms of line of thought and investment dollars are going in this space. Thank you very much. And back to you, Melvin.
Thank you very much, Ricardo. And right now we don't have any questions, but if there are any questions, I will forward it to you for you to contact them. And also attendees, you can visit the Fortinet booth at the exhibition hall for more questions and seeing the products and services. Thank you, Mr. Ricardo. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Happy Easter to you and your family.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.